I'm just there. I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to make these, that I'm making them for an audience. And when I'm done, I'm going to feel like, okay, that was what I was supposed to do. And they live forever. Good or bad, they live forever. And then it clicks. And then and that's what happens when two. And I was going to let them know, no, I'm not doing this. You know, in this way, it's not going to happen. I'm not in that mix. Why? Because if you're Harry, you know, and he seemed like a great guy, man, that's why I'm not married to an actress. It's like, Harry, I don't want to see my wife kissing someone.
Just when it looked like the tension around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was finally cooling off, a new twist pulled them right back into the spotlight, this time from a surprising corner. Reports started spreading that actor and filmmaker Kevin Costner made a quiet but noticeable move that quickly grabbed attention from both Hollywood insiders and royal watchers. It didn't happen on a red carpet or in some flashy interview, but during a private conversation tied to a well-known Santa Barbara charity event. The event, often called the 1805 Live Benefit, isn't just another fundraiser. It's known as a powerful behind-the-scenes space where big names from film, media, and business come together away from the cameras, where influence and money mix in a serious way. In that kind of setting, where every word is usually chosen carefully, Costner reportedly made it clear Meghan Markle would not be part of future gatherings at his private estate. No big speech, no public call-out, but the people in the room immediately understood what it meant. Costner has built a reputation over decades for staying low-key and out of drama, which made this move stand out even more. He's not known for stirring things up, so a firm line like this, even delivered quietly, carried major weight in a space where nothing is ever said without purpose. The reaction in the room, according to insiders, was instant.
There was a real problem because a lot of people felt that that would never get on the radio. But that's not my problem. My problem is my movie.
Conversations slowed, some even stopped, and the whole vibe shifted as people processed what had just been said. In Hollywood, being invited or left out sends a loud message about status and loyalty, even if nothing is said out loud. This wasn't just about one guest list. Events like the Santa Barbara Benefit are part of a bigger power circle where producers, investors, and creatives connect, make deals, and shape what projects get made next. These spaces quietly decide who stays relevant and who starts slipping out of view. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, rooms like this have mattered a lot. After stepping away from royal duties, they moved to Montecito, aiming to build influence in media and entertainment.
I was going to make a second one of Bodyguard. That was really flying down the tracks in a way, very quietly, because that's how I operate. I really keep things to myself.
Getting access to these circles wasn't just social. It was part of their long-term strategy. But Costner's reported move hinted at something bigger than one decision. It suggested the mood in parts of Hollywood might be shifting in subtle but real ways. When someone like Costner draws a line, even quietly, it often reflects a wider feeling behind the scenes, not just a personal choice. In this world, doors don't slam shut. They just stop opening. And for some insiders, this moment raised questions about whether the Sussex brand, once seen as a powerful mix of royalty and Hollywood ambition, is now being viewed with more caution. Even as Prince Harry continues to show up publicly, smiling, speaking, getting applause, the off-camera reality may be more complicated. In Hollywood, what you see is only part of the story, and the real changes usually happen quietly, noticed first by the people closest to the action. As Costner spoke and the night carried on, some guests felt a quiet shift in the air. Nothing loud or disruptive, just a subtle tension that lingered under the surface. Soon, attention moved back to the event itself, the Santa Barbara Benefit that had sparked all the whispers in the first place. From the outside, everything looked flawless. A high-profile gathering along the California coast, guests dressed sharp, moving through a night built on prestige and philanthropy. It had all the polished details people expect, and to anyone watching from a distance, nothing seemed out of place. Prince Harry stepped on stage, accepted his honor, and spoke with calm confidence. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed, and the official story showed a smooth, successful evening. But those actually in the room described something a bit different. Several attendees later said the vibe felt unusually tight, not uncomfortable, but missing the natural warmth these events usually have. In circles where small gestures say a lot, even a slight shift in tone can mean more than words. People started noticing the little things: body language, timing, who spoke to who, and how long those moments lasted. Nothing openly awkward happened, but the usual easy flow felt muted. Conversation stayed polite, yet some insiders felt the energy was more controlled and less natural. Costner himself stood out during the night. As host, he stayed professional but noticeably reserved, without the easy warmth people often expect in that role.
I happened to be over in England and got this message that the prince would love to talk to you. Wait a minute. I said, what? And he goes, well, he's here. He'd like to talk to you. So I went like, okay. I've never talked about this, but I can because of how I very much respect him.
It wasn't rude or direct, but in a space where nothing is said outright, that kind of distance didn't go unnoticed. Those small differences spoke volumes. Costner's interactions with Meghan Markle were said to be short and tightly controlled. There were polite nods and basic courtesies, but none of the easy, drawn-out conversations you'd expect between people in the same circle. Nothing dramatic happened on the surface. No arguments, no scenes, no awkward clashes, but that's exactly what made it stand out. In Hollywood's carefully managed world, tension doesn't show up as loud conflict. It shows up in what doesn't happen. Instead, it's the conversations that never start, or the ones that end almost instantly. As the night went on, some guests quietly compared notes. A few felt the distance was clearly intentional, while others wondered if something had already shifted behind the scenes before anyone even arrived. There was also quiet speculation, nothing confirmed about possible talks before the event. Some insiders hinted that agencies or reps tied to the benefit may have influenced parts of the guest list, possibly nudging certain appearances. Still, people who know Costner's track record weren't fully buying that idea. He's spent decades doing things his own way, rarely bending to outside pressure when it comes to personal boundaries. That history made the situation feel less like coincidence and more like a deliberate choice. Even as the night moved along without any public issues, that sense of distance didn't fade. It stuck with those paying attention, leaving questions hanging in the air. As the days passed, the conversation didn't fade. It grew. What first looked like simple social distance started to feel like something bigger as new claims began circulating in media and industry circles. Reports soon popped up suggesting that an alleged comment tied to Costner was making quiet rounds behind closed doors, shifting how people viewed the situation. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a tense moment at an event, it was being framed as something deeper. According to these reports, the supposed remark referenced Meghan Markle in a way some linked to broader reputation concerns connected to past royal controversies. Still, none of this has been verified or backed by any public statement, which makes the claims uncertain at best. Even so, the idea alone was enough to spark strong reactions across both Hollywood and royal circles. Certain topics carry lasting weight, especially when they connect to highly publicized scandals that people haven't forgotten. The monarchy has already dealt with serious fallout from past controversies, particularly involving Prince Andrew and his widely scrutinized associations. Because of that history, even loose or indirect comparisons can instantly grab attention, no matter how unclear or unproven they are. What started as a quiet moment at one event quickly turned into a much wider conversation about image, reputation, and how fast narratives can spiral once they get moving. In these circles, perception can shift overnight, and once it does, it's hard to control. While unverified rumors about Meghan Markle have floated around online before, they mostly stayed on the edges.
There was nobody else, and walked up and we sat down and we shook hands, and the first line out of his mouth was, he says, my mom kind of fancied you. I know. And we talked about a half hour. I'll never say what we talked about, but it was a very sweet thing. And we just chatted, and we both broke away, and we never became pen pals or did anything like that. But I've had such fond memories of who he was.
What made this situation feel different to some observers was the sense that these conversations were now creeping closer to mainstream industry chatter. For a long time, claims like these stayed on the edges. They floated around online forums and rumor-heavy spaces, rarely taken seriously by credible voices and usually dismissed as background noise in a fast-moving digital world where gossip spreads quicker than facts. What changed everything was the idea that someone with real weight in Hollywood might have even loosely echoed part of that narrative. Kevin Costner isn't some tabloid, regular, or anonymous voice. He's an Oscar-winning actor and filmmaker with a reputation built on discipline, consistency, and doing things his own way. When a figure like that gets linked, even indirectly, to a controversial conversation, people pay attention fast. As reports of the alleged comments spread, quiet discussions picked up across industry circles. Executives, producers, and advisors in Los Angeles started watching more closely, not because anything was confirmed, but because of what it could mean. In Hollywood, perception can matter just as much as reality. Even a loose connection to sensitive topics can affect casting choices, partnerships, and long-term deals. That's why media strategists and PR teams zero in on moments like this. They're trained to spot risk early and manage it before it grows. For them, it's not just about whether something is true, it's about how fast a story can spread and what damage it might do if ignored. That's when this situation stopped being about one comment and turned into a bigger reputational calculation. And it didn't stay in Hollywood. As the story spread, it crossed over to the UK, catching attention from circles tied to the royal family. In those spaces, anything that even hints at past controversies is handled carefully. The monarchy has spent years trying to steady its image after major public challenges, so advisors stay alert to anything that could reopen old wounds. Because of that, even indirect links to sensitive issues can trigger serious scrutiny, with teams closely tracking both the claims and how they might shape public perception. Prince Harry once again found himself pulled into the center of a growing story, even though it didn't start with him. After already facing intense attention following his royal exit, any new controversy tied to the wider royal narrative seems to bring his name right back into focus. The situation reportedly became serious enough that palace officials had to consider whether the story, even if based on speculation, could start affecting the monarchy itself. In 2026, the timing made things even more sensitive. King Charles III has been dealing with ongoing health concerns, limiting some public appearances, while Catherine, Princess of Wales, has also stepped back during recovery. With fewer senior royals actively representing the crown, the institution has looked more exposed than usual. At a time when stability and public confidence matter most, even loosely connected controversies can feel like a real risk. The shadow of the Epstein scandal still hangs over the monarchy, mainly due to Prince Andrew's association, which led to years of scrutiny and lasting damage to public trust. That period forced major changes and left advisors working carefully to rebuild credibility. So anything that even hints at similar themes now gets immediate attention. Inside palace offices, communications and legal teams are known to track how quickly stories like this can spread. In today's media environment, narratives can go global before facts are clear, and once they gain momentum, they're hard to control. That's why even the mention of Meghan Markle's name in this kind of conversation, regardless of proof, was seen as potentially reopening sensitive ground the monarchy has tried to move past. Reports suggest internal discussions became more focused, with advisors mapping out possible responses if things escalated. One question quietly raised was something that once seemed unlikely: whether royal titles linked to the family could ever be reconsidered if reputational risks grew too large. It's a complicated issue, but the fact it's even being discussed shows how serious the moment feels. Any move involving royal titles isn't simple. It would mean navigating complex legal and constitutional steps, often involving the government and parliament far beyond Buckingham Palace walls. But the fact that these conversations are even being revisited, even cautiously, shows how seriously advisors are taking the situation. Planning for worst-case scenarios is normal in institutions like the monarchy. Even unlikely possibilities get reviewed just to stay prepared. That's where the Titles Deprivation Act comes in, a law first introduced during World War I, when Britain faced a sensitive issue with aristocrats holding royal titles while tied to enemy nations. Back then, several noble families had German connections, which raised concerns during wartime. The government needed a way to deal with questions of loyalty and public trust. So, Parliament passed a law allowing the monarch to remove titles from those seen as acting against national interests. The principle behind it still matters today. Royal titles may carry history and prestige, but they are not completely untouchable. In rare situations, they can be reviewed or even revoked if they're seen as damaging to the crown's reputation. That said, the law has mostly sat unused for decades. It's been more of a historical backup than an active tool, usually mentioned in legal debates rather than real-life action. In modern times, the monarchy has handled controversies in quieter ways, stepping back from duties, giving up roles, or lowering public visibility. That approach was clear during the Prince Andrew situation. After heavy scrutiny over his association with Jeffrey Epstein, he withdrew from royal duties and lost key titles and patronages. While the 1917 Act wasn't used, the response showed the palace is willing to act when reputational risks get too high. Now, according to some reports, there's renewed interest behind the scenes in understanding whether laws like the Titles Deprivation Act could still apply today. In this case, attention has reportedly turned toward Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, not as part of any formal action, but as part of broader contingency planning. It's important to be clear, something like this wouldn't happen quickly or easily. Triggering the act would mean going through a strict legal process, with experts first deciding if any situation even meets the high bar set by the law. And even then, it wouldn't stop at palace walls. The British government would almost certainly get involved, since royal titles sit at the crossroads of law and public policy. If things moved forward, it could even reach Parliament, where both the House of Commons and the House of Lords would debate it. That would bring in politicians, legal experts, and constitutional voices, all weighing what it would mean to set a modern precedent. Still, behind closed doors, attention has reportedly drifted back to that old 1917 law. It hasn't been seriously used in modern times, but it's still there. And even being mentioned signals something deeper. It suggests conversations may be shifting beyond basic reputation management into more serious territory. No action has been taken, but the fact it's even part of the discussion shows how cautious things have become. At the same time, a different shift has been building across the Atlantic. In California, where influence and access shape everything. In the entertainment world, the tone around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle seems to be evolving. After moving to Montecito, they stepped into a new phase built on media projects, philanthropy, and big partnerships with major studios and platforms. At first, the response was huge. Their global recognition and personal story made them incredibly valuable, opening doors fast. Deals were announced, attention followed, and they gained access to circles most people never reach. But as this latest controversy started making rounds, some insiders noticed a quiet change. In Los Angeles, decisions rarely happen in public. They happen behind the scenes. And when narratives shift, executives and advisors often start rethinking partnerships just as quietly. Contracts involving high-profile figures almost always come with morality clauses. These rules are there to protect companies, giving them a way to rethink or exit deals if someone gets tied to controversy that could hurt the brand's image. For big corporations handling global audiences and massive investments, these choices aren't emotional. They're strategic. Everything comes down to risk, public reaction, and long-term positioning. So when uncertainty around someone's reputation pops up, internal reviews usually start, even if nothing changes right away. The goal isn't always to cut ties, but to ask a bigger question. Does this partnership still fit the company's direction? A clear example is the Sussex's deal with Netflix, which launched with huge buzz and was seen as a major move into long-form storytelling. The deal focused on documentaries and projects blending personal stories with wider social topics, putting them in the spotlight as both creators and subjects. At the time, it marked a turning point, showing their shift from royal duties to building influence in the entertainment world. They weren't just public figures anymore. They were positioned as storytellers with the power to shape global narratives. But as talk around Kevin Costner's reported comments and ongoing speculation spread, some analysts started questioning how shifting public opinion could impact deals like this. In this space, decisions don't come from one moment. They build over time through patterns, audience reactions, and brand alignment. And in today's fast-moving digital world, even unverified stories can start shaping how people see content. For executives managing big-budget projects, it's not just about what's true. It's about how things look and whether that perception could affect views, partnerships, or future plans. That pressure also lands on talent agencies, which are responsible for guiding high-profile clients through moments exactly like this. Agencies like WME, which has been linked to Meghan Markle's representation, work in a high-stakes space where reputation is everything. They have to balance client loyalty with strong ties to major companies. And when controversy starts building, every move has to be calculated carefully. What made this moment stand out wasn't just criticism, it was where it seemed to be coming from. For years, negative coverage around Meghan was mostly tied to British tabloids, often criticized for their tone. Supporters argued those stories were shaped by bias and didn't reflect the bigger picture. But this time felt different. The conversation, as described by insiders, appeared to be coming from within parts of Hollywood itself. That shift alone caught attention. Kevin Costner isn't a tabloid voice. He's a respected, long-established figure in the industry. So any perceived link to these discussions, direct or not, added a layer of credibility that made producers, executives, and investors take notice fast. As that perception started to settle in, some insiders suggested it could affect how the Sussex brand is viewed in key circles. In entertainment, branding is everything. Being seen as an asset or a risk can quietly shape decisions that never get explained publicly. That raises bigger questions about how stable their post-royal strategy really is. Their move to California was built on global fame, personal storytelling, and access to powerful networks. If even one of those pieces starts to shift, it can create real uncertainty. By early 2026, some observers also noticed a subtle change in Prince Harry's appearances. Where he once showed up alongside Meghan for most engagements, he's now being seen more frequently on his own, sparking even more quiet speculation about what's changing behind the scenes. At first, the change was subtle, but over time, it became hard to ignore. One clear example came during events tied to the Invictus Games, the global competition Harry created to support wounded service members. As he traveled to Canada to promote the next phase, cameras showed him stepping into the spotlight on his own. He was seen connecting directly with athletes, veterans, and their families, often without Meghan by his side. The energy felt familiar, almost like a return to his earlier royal years, when his image was closely linked to military service and charity work. In those moments, Harry came across focused and confident, speaking about resilience, recovery, and ihtiram for those who served. His bond with the veteran community was still strong, and for many, it brought back the version of him that once earned widespread respect across the UK and beyond. A similar feeling followed during his humanitarian trip to Angola, where he supported efforts to clear landmines left from past conflicts. The symbolism was powerful. It closely echoed Princess Diana's famous walk through a minefield, one of the most unforgettable humanitarian images tied to the royal family. Harry's presence there highlighted that legacy and reminded people of the role he once played within the monarchy's global story. But at the same time, it also revealed a more complicated picture. While he focused on service and humanitarian work, the conversation around Meghan Markle continued to dominate headlines on both sides of the Atlantic. Each appearance placed him between two parallel narratives, his personal mission and the ongoing media storm, shaping how people viewed him, even when the two didn't directly connect. On one side, there's Harry's commitment to Meghan and the life they've built in California, a life built on independence, media deals, and philanthropy, far from royal rules. On the other side, the conversation in Britain hasn't stopped, with ongoing questions about the monarchy's image and how it handles growing public pressure. Balancing those two worlds isn't easy, especially when both are constantly shaped by outside opinions and shifting public mood. Right now, Harry seems to be standing at a real crossroads, caught between the role he once had and the path he's chosen now. His past was built on duty, service, and a clear place inside the royal system. Today, his life is more independent, driven by global partnerships and a new kind of influence. But as both worlds keep changing, they don't always line up the way they once did. That raises a bigger question. Can this balance actually last? The Sussex journey after stepping back has relied on fame, visibility, and powerful connections. But as opinions shift in both royal and Hollywood circles, that foundation could start facing real pressure. Moments like the one linked to Kevin Costner's reported remarks, whether fully clear or not, tend to spark bigger conversations. They shine a light on tensions and changes that usually stay hidden behind the scenes. For some watching closely, this could be the start of a major shift in how the Sussex story unfolds next. So what do you think? Is this just a natural evolution? Or is something deeper changing behind the scenes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more updates.